Hello, I'm Mark Nanaman. Today I'm going to show you how I created a Copilot agent that uses Power Automate and AI Builder to generate sample data from fictional universes, TV shows, movies, plays, anything. So let's just hop right in. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to have a Copilot agent. I'm going to have it in a model-driven app embedded there. We can chat with it and request it to create 5, 10, 12, whatever number of sample contacts for our Dataverse environment. And then we'll give it a theme to create those contacts from. So a theme like the name of a movie or a TV show or a book or something. And our Copilot agent is going to need to call a flow to generate these contacts for us. So we need to create a flow that has a Copilot trigger. And that's what I've got here. It's a run a flow from Copilot trigger. We've got two inputs. We've got a text input called theme. We just give it a little placeholder here or a little description, describe a theme. We've got a number input and it's number of contacts to create. The key part of this flow and the backbone of this entire process is this AI builder. So we've got this AI builder action, create text with GPT using a prompt. So I throw that action in here. And then I design my own prompt, and we'll take a look at that prompt now. Okay, so here we are inside of the prompt designer. Now we need to do three things when we're designing this prompt. We need to define inputs, define outputs, and then write our prompt for number 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the inputs, and they're already in here, so we'll just take a look at them. I've got theme and number, just like from our trigger. So the theme, and then sample data. We give it some sample data so that we can run a sample. We can test this with a sample run, trial run. So the sample data I gave it for the theme is use characters from Game of Thrones. The number is a number of contacts to create, number of characters to get from the fictional universe. Next, let's take a look at the output. So my output, I want a structured output. I want a JSON output that can be easily worked with by the flow. So I selected JSON and I gave it a sample JSON array structured the way I would like it to be. So this is loosely modeled on the structure of Dataverse contacts table. So I've got full name, first name, last name. Some things are different, like I've got company instead of, account or parent. So I got the company name and I've got universe for the fictional universe. That's a custom column I added to my contacts table. Then we got some address, properties, telephone, email address. And looks like I created 3 sample records and they are all related to the Peaky Blinders show. So that was the sample that I gave it to help the GPT know how to structure the output. And now over here, we've got our prompt that we need to explain to the GPT what we want done. So I say create number, unique example contacts from my Dataverse contacts table and output the results in a JSON array. Please make sure each contact has a unique name. If you cannot create number of unique contacts, create as many unique ones as you can under number. And to add these variables in here, these inputs in here, you just, as you're typing, you can do a / and it will give you a little pop-up for you to select a dynamic reference. So you can drop your inputs in here. And then I say use the theme prompt below to create these contacts, theme : and then I drop in the theme. And I have some more information under here, some more direction under here. For the universe of each contact, use a fictional universe described in a theme here. For each contact, create a company account for them to be associated with. Put this in the company property of each contact item in the output JSON. Please also invent a fake phone number for telephone 1, a fake email address for email address 1, as well as a fake address 1, line 1, and address 1, state or province, and address 1, city values in the output JSON. So let's go ahead and see if we can test this. We just click test prompt, and it has shown us the test output. So the first one is Eddard Stark, because remember our sample input was Game of Thrones. So this is correct, Eddard Stark. He's with Winterfell Enterprises from Game of Thrones. We've got Daenerys Targaryen, Dragonstone Holdings, Jon Snow, Night's Watch Logistics, Tyrion Lannister, Lannister Enterprises, Cersei, Red Keep Holdings, Sansa Stark, Winterfell Fashion, Arya Stark, Faceless Men Services. So you get an idea of how well the neural network has been trained here, because it knows that Arya, she joins that cult towards the end of the series where they wear the masks and they become faceless people or whatever. Bronn Stark, Three-Eyed Raven Consulting. So that's how we generate our sample contacts, and we get it output in a structured output, a structured JSON array. So for the rest of the flow, we're going to have to create those contacts and link them to the appropriate related tables. I'll try and give a brief overview of the rest of this without getting too into the weeds. What we do after we get our sample contacts created from this GPT action, I use a select action to select from the output array. So that's the structured output from this. And I'm selecting just the company name. I'm making a simple one-dimensional array of company names. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to get distinct names, because sometimes the same company name will be used for different characters who might be closely related, like they're family members or they both work at the same company, like the GPT gives them the same company to work for. I don't want to create duplicate accounts for each of those companies. So I have a compose here, and I do the intersection function, and I just pass that simple array in there twice, and that will remove duplicates basically and give you a distinct list. Then I loop through each of those company names, each of those unique or distinct company names. I have this custom plugin, low-code plugin I made that uses PowerFX to HTML encode the company name. The reason I'm doing that is I'm using down here for this list rows to check for existing accounts with the same name. I have this fetch XML. I create a fetch XML code in a model-driven app. I just go into a view on my accounts table and I filter it on name equals, and I type in some name. And then I save that, I export it to XML. I open that XML code file and paste it in here. And then I remove whatever name I filtered on and replace it with output from this action. And the reason I'm doing that and not just dropping the company name straight in here is your fetch XML can be broken with an apostrophe. That's a common way it can be broken. There are some other characters that will break it as well, and it will fail. So the way around that is to HTML encode those special characters like apostrophes. So I'm using this action to HTML encode the name, and then I just plop it in here. You could not do this. You could use like some replace functions to replace your apostrophes with the HTML encoded version of the character. And then I use an upsert to update or create a new record if needed. And the way we do that is we just use a coalesce here to pass the first account ID found from this action as the first parameter, and then the fallback is a brand new GUID. So we either get an ID from that's already in the system, or we create a new ID and use that with the upsert, and that would create a new record. And then also we're passing in the name. For some reason it renders as body here, but it's just the current item with parentheses. After that, this is a little bit of a trick that you can do in Power Automate that some people might not know about. I just learned about it recently. You can put a compose here. Since this is a loop that isn't nested, we can do this trick where we put a compose here, and I just drop in the body of this action right here. And that basically creates an array that can be referenced downstream. So I'm just doing this for something downstream. And that is right here, select new accounts. So I'm selecting from this action's outputs, or this action's body. And I just go in here and type in body and then account, like that, the name of the action. And that basically pulls in not one of these, but all of them in an array. So that's an array. So I'm doing a select on that, and I'm basically simplifying this array, and I'm selecting just the name, item name, and the ID, which would be item account ID. And I'm doing that so that later on when I create my contacts, I have an easy way to look up the ID of the account to populate the lookup field on the contact to the account name, to the account record. Next, I do something similar. I list fictional universes. So whatever fictional universe is output by the GPT, I look for that to see if it already exists. So I don't want to create duplicate, multiple Game of Thrones in my table. I want to have just one. So we list any fictional universes using fetch XML again. And then we do an upsert again, where we just do that coalesce trick with a brand new GUID. So we're either creating a new fictional universe or updating the existing one. All right, next we are creating our contacts, the important part. So we're looping through the structured output of our GPT. It's as simple as going here and looking for our GPT and selecting the prediction output / structured output. It's an array, so we can loop through it. And then I've got a compose here where I'm just grabbing the company name of each new contact output by the GPT. And then I'm doing a filter on this select of accounts. And remember, this select has a name and an ID property. We want to get the ID property. So we filter on that simple array and we check for the name that is equal to the current name up here. So I've got a reference to this compose company name here in the second parameter. That filters and gets us the account that's in the system already for each contact. And we can use the ID property from this filter to populate the lookup column below, down here, where we add a new contact. Now note, I'm not doing the list. I'm not doing a duplicate check here. I'm not listing existing contacts and then doing an upsert. That would be smart to do, but I'm just creating new contacts here. So if you're serious about using a method like this in production or having multiple people do it, you would definitely want to do something to control for duplicates here. But since this is just for demonstration purposes, we're skipping that. So here I add a new row for each contact. And for the simple properties, I just drop straight references to each one that comes from the GPT where it needs to go on the contact table. So last name, drop last name there. Also append this sample in parentheses, so I know it's a sample record. I've got city and the address properties and first name, email address, state, province, etc. For the company name, the account lookup, I do /accounts, and then in parentheses, I reference that filter above. We take the first output from the filter, and then we take the ID property from that. And that's how we set the lookup to the company for that contact. And then for the fictional universe, I'm just grabbing the OData ID property from our upsert on the fictional universe above, right above the loop. So OData ID. There are two ways to set a lookup column, at least two ways. One way is the one we looked at above here, where you do a / and then the plural name of the table, and then in parentheses you put the ID. You can also drop an OData ID string in there from a Dataverse action that references that record, and that also works. So that creates our contact. Next, I send an HTTP post to a child flow I created that uses Bing API image search to search the internet with the contact character's name and their fictional universe and grab a picture from Bing Images to be the profile picture of the new contact. And then next, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a list of clickable HTML links to my model-driven app, and they're deep links, so they open up the new contact created when you click on it. And the way I do that is I use this fetch XML here that filters on the current fictional universe, and it looks for records that were created after our flow started to run. So it grabs all the new records we just created. And then I've got this little, I save my HTML template in a compose. And so I wrote some HTML that's basically just link elements. And they link to my model-driven app with my app ID. And it tells it that I want to go to the contact table. And then I've got some variables, some like pseudo variables I put in here. I make them up myself and I put them in curly braces. So curly braces ID, curly brace name, curly brace company. And then to replace those variables with actual values, I use a select. So I select from this list of contacts, and then I use some nested replace actions to look up those pseudo variables and replace them with actual values. So here's my nested replaces, and they work off of the HTML template in that compose. This one looks for ID, and it replaces it with item contact ID. The next one looks for the name and replaces it with item full name. The next one looks for company, and it replaces it with the parent customer ID value, and then this OData formatted value string that pulls in the title of the related record on the lookup column. And then I have this select, which simplifies that previous select, makes a simple array of just those HTML links. And then down here, when I respond to my Copilot, I have this new contacts links string parameter, and we have a join here. And the join is just taking that simple array of HTML and joining it with a HTML new line break element. We also return some other information like the number of contacts made, the number of seconds the flow took to run. All right, so now let's hop over into Copilot Studio and take a look at how we set up our agent to be able to call that flow and generate our contacts for us. So here in Copilot, you can click Create a New Agent and walk through the wizard to create a new agent. I've already got the agent created for doing this, so I'll just open that up and show you how I have it set up. So here's my agent. It's called Contact Creator. The first thing you need to make sure you have configured properly is your generative AI in your settings. So you go to Settings and you click on Generative AI. You need to make sure you have this Generative Preview option selected. And that allows your agent to call a flow and decide what inputs to give the flow. After you've enabled generative AI, all you really need to do is create a topic. So here I am in my topics tab for my agent. And down here, I've got this topic I created. I selected add a topic and I named it make sample contacts. Once you've got your topic created, you need to go to details. Here's where you can set the name of your topic and give it a description. You can also do a model display name and model description. Then you want to go to input. So under details, topic details, input. And here we define some input variables. So my variable name here for the first one is vUserPrompt. And how will the agent fill this input? This is key. This is what you need that generative AI turned on for. Dynamically fill with best option. It should be default. And the variable type is a string. Display name, vUserPrompt, and identify as user's entire response. Scrolling down here, I added another variable called vNumber. How will the agent fill the input? Dynamically fill with the best option. It's a number data type. And the description is the number of contacts the user wants to create. So now when you chat with your agent, it will parse those values, those variables out of your chat, and it will call this topic and provide them as inputs. So after it's been triggered, we add an action. In the action, this is where you select that flow we just worked on. So you add your action, it'll give you this list to choose from, and you can use search. And I name my flow Copilot Generate Sample Contacts right there. When you have your flow selected, it will show you the inputs for the trigger, and it'll also show you the outputs. So here at the top, we have the inputs that go into the flow. And as you'll recall from that section of the video, we had a theme input and we had a number input. Those are the same as the inputs for our topic. And so we just drop the topic's input triggers here. So vuser prompt goes in for theme and vnumber goes in for number. And then down here we have the outputs that come back from the flow. The most important one is this new contacts links. That's that string of HTML links that we can click on to open each new contact in a model-driven app. And we present that list of links to the user with this message action. I've got two formats here. So you can add multiple versions of your message and it will, randomly pick one to display. This option here says, okay, boss, I made count. And so count is one of the outputs from the flow. I made count new contacts from theme, and that's an output from the flow. And it only took me, and it shows the number of seconds that it took the flow to run. And then at the bottom, it pastes the new contact link string. In the other message template, I add some additional details. I use some math here to calculate how many seconds per contact it took the flow to create. And then at the end, we redirect to the end of conversation. And over here on the right, we can test our agent. The agent is designed to greet us and tell us a little bit about itself. I create fake contacts for your Dataverse environment. I can create contacts from any theme or fictional universe. For example, I could make you 10 contacts from Star Trek. Let's do this. Let's test this out. I've been watching Money Heist lately, so let's create some contacts from that. Create 10 characters from, and I'm going to be pretentious here. I'm going to put in the Spanish name and see if you can figure that out. La Casa de Papel. I think that's how it's spelled. Just a moment, I'm creating your contacts. It can take about 10 seconds per contact. Estimated total wait time will be 100 seconds. You also can define this message right here in the topic. All right, it looks like the agent has responded. Here you go, 10 new contacts from La Casa de Papel. Monica, I remember her. Denver, yep. Arturo Roman, yep. Moscow, Helsinki, Nairobi, Rio, Berlin, Tokyo, and Sergio. That's pretty cool. Although it looks like we left off the professor. I don't know why the professor didn't get included here. That's too bad. Let's click on one of these and see what we get. Click on Berlin. All right, cool. This worked. We even got the correct profile picture. It's not 100% on the profile pictures. Like I said, I'm using Bing Image Search API, and I've got a flow that handles that. It takes the name that you give your character and then the name of the fictional universe, and it creates like a search string with that, passes that to the API, and then looks for portraits or photographs, and it'll pick the first good one it can and uploads it to Dataverse. And you know what? I need to correct myself and apologize to my agent. I was chiding it earlier for not giving me the professor in the list of Money Heist characters, but Sergio here, Sergio Marquina, I think that's the real name of the professor, but you don't find out his real name till later on in the series. And as you can see, I've also got my agent embedded in my model-driven app here. I just added a web resource page, and I've got a web resource in my solution that's just basically an HTML iframe that embeds a link to the agent. So I can interact with my agent right here in the model-driven app. Let's try it again. Let's say create 10 contacts from Squid Game. All right, so it's created some of our contacts. Let's see, I think this guy is the main character. I'm going to test my memory here. I was right. So that worked well for Squid Game. All right, the agent wants to know if this answered my question. I'll say yes. Oh, he wants a rating. I'll give him 4. I don't want him to get cocky. Can I help with anything else? Let's say yes. How about create, let's do 12 contacts from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Here you go, 12 new contacts from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Rom, he's at Quark's Bar and Grill, that's right. Amelia Bashir. Who's Amelia? Is that, maybe that's Dr. Bashir's mother. Garrick, I remember Garrick. Worf, Esri Dax, Miles O'Brien, Odo, Quark, Kira Nerys, Julian Bashir, that's Dr. Bashir, Benjamin Sisko, and Jadzia Dax. Garrick was my favorite. Let's see if we got a good profile picture for Garrick. Yep, that's Garrick. It's not the best picture of him, but that is Garrick right there, and Benjamin Sisko in the foreground. All right, pretty cool. Yes, that answered my question. Let's do 8 contacts from Dune. So we've got Fed Harkonnen, Chani, Vladimir Harkonnen, Stilgar, Jessica Atreides, Gurney, Paul Atreides, and Duncan Idaho. So those are all characters from Dune. Pretty cool. And here's Paul Atreides, House Atreides, Paul Atreides at houseatreides.com. Let's click on Vladimir Harkonnen. I know in the past when I was testing this, the Bing Image API, I had a hard time finding Vladimir Harkonnen. This picture. You got Putin. So that's a little bit off. All right, I'm going to try and stump this. I'm going to try, I think I thought of something. Let's see, create 10 contacts from, I'm going to try and think of a book that hasn't been made into a movie, or at least not a really popular movie. So I'm going to say create 10 contacts from Voltaire's Candide. I remember reading that book in college, and I don't know of any film or TV adaptations, at least nothing really popular. Martin the Manichaean, The Old Woman, Pangloss the Philosopher. I remember Pangloss. I think this was like the love interest right here. And then there's Candide. I remember Candide and Pangloss. So I'm assuming the rest of this is accurate. It might have just made some stuff up. I'm going to try even something harder. Let's do create 5 contacts from the Clouds by Aristophanes. Oh, shoot. Yes, that answered my question. I'm going to rate. Yes. And now let's do the Clouds by Aristophanes, the ancient Greek satirical playwright. The Clouds was his play where he's making fun of Socrates. This might actually stump the GPT. Yeah, I think we stumped it because he should have had it should have had Socrates in here somewhere, and it looks like it's just inventing names that are related to clouds in the sky. So we were able to stump it there, but for most purposes, this works pretty good. I'm going to give it another chance with ancient Greece. Let's do create 10 contacts from Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. I hope I spelled Oedipus right. Antigone, Oedipus Thebian, Jocasta. This looks right to me, but it's been a while since I read Oedipus Rex. But I think this is more or less right. All right, well, there you have it. That's a pretty cool way you can use Copilot agents and AI Builder to generate fictional contacts for your Dataverse environment. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can check out the blog post in the description below to see how I did this in more detail. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.